500 workshop. Today we're going to be looking at this crank, and in this crankcase. The reason why we're going to be looking at this is because I've been having some problems with oil pressure. So when the car would get hot, the oil pressure would drop and the oil pressure light would come on, and you had to keep revving the engine in order to keep the oil pressure up. So yeah, we're going to be taking a look at why that was. This is the crankcase here is a 126, so it's 650cc engine. It's Italian block. I don't know whether that makes any difference at all. People say the Italian blocks are better than the Polish blocks, but I'm not sure whether that's true or just personal preference and opinion. So yeah, we basically used the car during the summer, had these effectively overheating problems with the low oil pressure, and the only way to get around that was to stop for a while and let the car cool down. So we took the engine out of the car. We've had it with Nathan at Classic Car Solutions in Harpenden, and we've had it all measured. So here is the main bearing, one of the main bearings, chain end, as you can see. And you can see where there's lines and degradation there. So this bearing has suffered from not having enough oil. And then if we look at our crank here, you can see across the journals a lot of scoring and damage, again from not having enough oil pressure. But what we found when we measured it all up is that that kind of journal that the bearing is going on at the moment, that has been ground to a smaller size, and then a standard bearing has been used. So this bearing literally was not adequate for the job, and that's created enough of a gap to create low oil pressure when the oil is really hot, and now we've got damage all across the crank. So in addition to the issues that we've had with the crank, we also discovered some issues with the camshaft. So here is our cam taken out of the engine, and what you can see here is on the third lobe across, we've got a nice high point where the lobe would lift, but on all three of the others, that has worn down terribly. So we got really low cams across the board here. Now, whether that's a running in problem that we've had, or whether that's low oil pressure or something else that's caused that, not sure. But this cam has had it and is not going back in the engine. So let's take a bit of a closer look at what we've got in here. So we've got our new camshaft. Now this is a 3575 cam, so it's slightly uprated on standard, and it's also hardened, so should suffer from lobe wear less. Then we have our new crank in the middle here, and this was balanced, but we've had to take some material off in order to make sure that it passes the new camshaft. So the hardened crank is often a little bit larger in width, and would foul on that gear there, which operates the distributor. So yeah, we've had to take some material off there. Nathan's done that for me on a machine. So we've also had to take off some material two sides on the flywheel side of the crankshaft. So just on top there where I was pointing, and on the other side. So on the other side here is where we had to take off material, and the reason why we're having to take off that material is because when this was cast, these pieces were too high, and that stops the crank from being put in this hole where the bearing goes on the flywheel side. So yeah, that just wouldn't go in. So material had to come off in those places. Also on this crank, slightly different, is that I will just show you on the old one. There's normally like a little cap there that you have to kind of tap out and then replace with new ones, and that allows you to clean the inners of the crankshaft. This one has tiny threads throughout, so we've got these small screws that just go in all these different holes. So there's 6 holes on here, and they allow access to allow us to clean it when we want to. We'll put those in with some Loctite to make sure that they don't come out while the engine's operating. We'll also be replacing the bearings here, the big end bearings on these journals, so the pistons can operate. The original bearings were shot as well from the lack of oil and from the scraping that we saw on the other crank. So we'll be replacing those along with all the other bearings.